You're listening to the Career Musician Podcast with creator and host, Nomad. With 20 plus years of experience in the music industry, Nomad has done just about everything to earn a living as a career musician. From being music director to celebrity artists, playing iconic arenas and stadiums, composing for film and TV, and even playing your average local club gigs, he's done it all. Nomad's mission is to empower musicians across the globe with strategies for a sustainable career while blasting stereotypes, and to bring you tried and true wisdom from his colleagues in this crazy business we call music.
Hailing from the motherland of my father's descent, Cuba, that's right, Cuba, Walfredo Reyes Jr. is the drummer's drummer, with the ability to play drums and percussion simultaneously while sounding like an entire rhythmic percussion section all his own. He has held down gigs with celebrity artists such as Steve Winwood, Santana, Traffic, Jackson Brown, Celia Cruz, Gloria Estefan, David Lindley, Ricky Lee Jones, Richard Marx, Sergio Mendes, Smokey Robinson, Christina Aguilera, Ricky Martin, Johnny Halliday, Khalid, Lindsey Buckingham, and oh yeah, he is the resident drummer for Chicago. That's right, Chicago the band. Check it out right here on the Career Musician Podcast with my homie from Cuba, Walfredo Reyes Jr. Walfredo Wally Reyes Jr. Welcome to the podcast, my brother.
Man, it's an honor to be here with you. One of my favorite guitar players, man. I'm telling you.
Oh, man.
You know, I've been, not that we're doing this together right now, but through the years, after so many times that we played together, I've been listening to you with so many records, and even my own tune that you played on Maracatu. And it's just like, I really appreciate it and really admire you.
Oh, man. Dude, thank you so much. Coming from you, that means so much, bro. Seriously.
Well, it has to be said, you know.
Thank you so much. So, wow. All right. I appreciate that. And you are a musical beast from Cuba, my homeland, my motherland, right? The motherland for us.
From Cuba. I was born in Cuba and then left when I was 5 with my dad, of course, all being musicians. Went to New York, and then we went to Puerto Rico. So I grew up in Puerto Rico from the 1st grade to the 8th grade. And then from there, we moved to Las Vegas when I was like 13. My father got the gig of house band drummer at the Old Desert Inn Hotel.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been a journey.
I didn't know that. Okay, so from Cuba, you went to New York, then Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
How long was the stint in New York? Do you remember?
A year.
Okay, it's quick. Yeah. And then, so 1st to 8th grade in Puerto Rico. And okay, so first of all, you grew up bilingual then. Is that a safe assumption? Okay. So always speaking both. And what age did you start banging on the drums? I mean, it had to be super young.
Well, it's interesting because I always played percussion a little bit when I was like in the 7th and 8th grade in Puerto Rico for fun, you know, to go to the beach, Christmas music, Puerto Rican style, you know, merengues and all that stuff. And then when the rock and roll stations really hit hard in Puerto Rico, I really loved all the stuff that was in the radio, you know, Rolling Stones, the Beatles, the Guess Who, CTA, Cream, Led Zeppelin. So I basically told my dad I want to do drum lessons, thinking that he was going to put me on the drum set. But he started me on a practice pad, a metronome, a book of rudiments. So I paid dues for about 3 months. And then he got the gig in Las Vegas and we moved to Las Vegas. And I set up my dad's drum set without his permission. And my first beat that I ever played on the drum set was Honky Tonk Woman.
Wow, by the Rolling Stones. Look at that.
Yeah, it was a hit at that time.
Man, so you know what's really cool? I love the fact that, you know, the parents are so strict. I'm the same way with my daughter. I've been teaching her piano, and I started her on Bach. Like,
yes,
hey, if you're going to do this, you're going to do it the right way. So, you know, I love how your dad did the same things for you. He's like, here's the pad, here's the rudiments. You know, you got to have that solid foundation.
Yeah, you know what happens is it's very difficult to actually do that today. You know, the kids all want to have fun. But, you know, I relate it to sports. I mean, when you go for boxing, I don't know, whoever is into boxing or football or soccer, they're not going to throw you out in the boxing ring.
Nope.
You got to do a lot of rudiments and calisthenics and all that stuff. And then the same thing with every sport. I mean, sometimes I used to say, what the hell playing American football has to do with running 10 laps and doing all these exercises and you know, so basically that's the rudiments, that's the scales.
Yeah, it's so true, because I took an MMA class about a year and a half ago, and I just kept going. I couldn't stop. I got addicted to it. And the first thing you do when you walk in is jump rope. And you jump rope for the first 20 minutes of the class. And he's like, yo, if you can't jump rope for 20 minutes, how are you going to hit the bag for 20 minutes? How are you going to get in the ring and spar? You know, you can't. So, So true with anything you do. I love that analogy you made.
Yeah. So, you know, I did it. And then I started, when we arrived in Las Vegas, my dad, of course, was really busy. So he put me with a teacher. And then I started formal drum lessons on the drum set, on continuing rudiments and all that. But what happened is, with me playing percussion and all that, I joined every band in Las Vegas, all the rock bands. You know, at that time, remember, it was a changing fusion times in the 70s. You had conga drums and Latin percussion with Santana, Osibisa, Rare Earth, all the funky bands, all the Ohio Players, Sly and the Family Stone. Everybody was adding Latin percussion. And so I joined in that way on Latin percussion while studying drums. And then a lot of the times I wind up playing drums also with that band, and then continue my studies in high school and college and playing at night. So it was an era that it was like I quit everything else. I couldn't do any sports. I didn't even have time to go on dates with girls. It was music, you know.
I love that. I can identify with that so much, and I'm sure so many listeners out there can. And I think that's a really good thing when you're so young, in your teenage years and your early 20s, that we're so consumed with really perfecting our craft. That way we don't get in as much trouble as potentially we could, right?
that is so true, actually. What you just said is so important, because today I find that our lives are so different. So the Boys and Girls Clubs, a lot of the churches are taking all these kids after school with music programs take them off the streets.
That's right.
So in a way, that kept me off the streets, which was great. My dad and my mom rather give me dinner on the floor tom-tom than me eating out there somewhere. And so yeah, it kept me off the streets. But today, that's a very important thing for all of you out there that have children. If they're not into after-school sports, music and activities are very, very important.
Right, it's true. And because, like you said, the rudiments are so difficult to master. Like, it's just funny. I look at drum rudiments and they scare me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. You know, of course I could do it on guitar, but you know, it's like you really have to take a slow approach to that, and it takes so much time and dedication. So what happens is your mind now is focused on that, right? It's the perfect deflection from everything else.
Yes.
You know, so I love it.
And then, you know, the application, just like guitar, you know, if you go right, left on the drums, anybody that plays anything on the drums is playing a rudiment, whether it's a single, a double, and a mixture. So to actually know what you're doing, you know, I can go to the refrigerator and start throwing stuff in the frying pan, but it's really great when you have a recipe and to know exactly this is Italian food, this is Cuban food, and this is the recipe. And the same thing goes with drums and rhythms. You know, it all has kind of like a recipe. You're playing a cha-cha rock, you got a rock beat with a quarter note, small cowbell. So, you know, it's all ingredients, you know. And
I love that. I love that. And I'm so glad you brought that up. So I have to say this. I was reading through some materials about you online, and one of the things said that, you know, Wally can play the drums and percussion at the same time and make it sound like there's a drummer and a percussionist. And I have witnessed this with my own two eyes doing gigs with you. So I love that. And this seems like the perfect segue. Can you elaborate on how you developed that and, you know, maybe some insight there?
Well, I got it from my dad originally, because my dad was one of the pioneers on mixing percussion into the drum set. The way he tells the story is when he was in Cuba, there was the American tourists, you know, they wanted to dance swing music, big band, foxtrot, jazz ballads, and then there was the Latin band. So my dad, you know, I don't know, out of laziness, instead of saying, well, why do I have to have another setup over there? If the band's coming over here, why don't I just sit in one stool? I play drum set with the American music. And when it comes to the Latin band, I have the timbales here and the conga on my left, and I can still play the hi-hat and the snare and the timbales and the cowbells. And I don't have to get up to another setup. So there was no division for him. So I started like that. So why not color your groove with a tambourine or a cowbell or a conga beat? So if you're playing, it's really hard because people cannot see it. But if you're playing with your right hand, hi-hat and snare, you have your hand for free. So basically, when I heard Charlie Watts play Honky Tonk Woman, actually, I thought that he was playing that with one hand because he doesn't play the 2 and 4 with the high. So I thought, oh, he's doing this. And the cowbell, I thought that he was doing it because I didn't see him. So you know, you start playing. I have a little DVD, actually, that's called Global Beats. And it starts showing that because I wanted to show some of my students and some of my kids what I'm talking about right now. So I actually put a DVD together, Global Beats by Hal Lanner.
Okay, so it's still in publication. It's available.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can actually it's not too much about 2 and 4, but you know, it's little like grooves around the world that are really cool. That is like dancing grooves. And I have 2 percussionists, Kevin Ricard and my brother, Danny De Los Reyes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I was going to ask you about your brother, too. And Kevin Ricard is... Okay, perfect. Oh, I love that. Wow, okay. First of all, I have to get that DVD because... Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
I want to learn. Can somebody... Is it kind of basics? Does it start you at the, you know...
Yes. Okay. It has a basic section with exercises of how to kind of like split your brain between the drum set and percussion parts.
Yeah.
And then has a middle section, and some tunes are really easy to play and some are not. Yeah. So I have Alfonso Johnson, Ramon Stagnaro, the late Roger Byrne, Katis Buckingham. Kind of like we put the band together like in a hurry because it was one of the things that the band that I had planned, you know how it is, they were all on the road.
Yeah.
And then there's another section with Armand Sabaleco playing some African grooves with me in another studio. So it's really a great, enjoyable DVD. If you're not a drummer, you can actually watch the DVD like a concert.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
that's
but
cool.
If you want to stop and learn about the grooves, then you join the lessons. And you know, and then that was the extension. My first CD, which you play on maracatu, is actually the extension of that DVD. I wanted to actually play the tunes really as I had them on my mind. And I started, you know, with zero budget, as you know, it was like you actually helped me out because I remember you cutting the tracks from your apartment.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do, and it came out really great thanks to this great mixer in LA, Johnny Silas Cranfield.
Oh, yeah.
And he put all of this stuff from all over the world, including your track, together into this great compositions of the world. So,
and that's Wally World, right?
Yeah, Wally World.
Wally World. That's the CD. I love that project, man. So, oh wow,
you sounded fantastic, and you and the track is actually Kevin Ricard on percussion and Alfonso Johnson on bass, and Katia Moraes sings this Brazilian maracatu from north of Brazil, and you sounded amazing. And of course, I'm a fan of your CD. The other day, I was just actually, it pops out on my radio and my car stereo all the time. Oh my God. I think it was your first CD.
Yeah, it's my very first. It's old. It's called Discovery Anew, right? Or yeah, Discovery Anew. That was my second one. My first one was Esperando. Yeah, which was that's even. But now all the music I make is pretty much with my wife in our duo called Nomad and Lola.
Oh my God, I gotta really hear that,
bro. You gotta check it out. I'll send you some links because we just covered Hotel California, and I did like a flamenco guitar treatment to it.
Oh man,
yeah.
Okay, that's one to get.
I'll send you that, man. That's so cool. And so I love the fact that growing up and working. Well, coming up, and working in LA or in a place like Vegas. So you cut your teeth in Vegas, then you come to LA, you get immersed in the scene. And I love what you said, like, oh yeah, I had a band, I called everybody, we were set to do it. And then next thing you know, everybody's out on tour. But then the musicians that you got to cover were just as much as the badass as the original cats.
Yes.
I love that, with the musical community here in LA, it's so rich and deep. You can find a master at everything. Talk about your experience here in LA. How did you get immersed into the scene, and how did you really establish yourself?
Well, going just a little bit back. So when I started in college, it was 1976, 77, and I was working a lot in Las Vegas. But at that time, Alex Acuna had come to Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. Don Elias used to come to Las Vegas with Lou Rawls, and I met him. And then I would start when I was in college. I went to LA to the music festivals, and I met this drummer at that time. He was an Eagle Rock high school band, and his name was Carlos Vega. So Carlos. So I met him there. I was in first, I think we both were in last year of high school and college.
By the way, which college did you go to?
UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
Gotcha.
So it was close to LA. So I was just getting really, really busy in Las Vegas playing shows. I started working with Lola Falana, left college. Doc Severinsen, when he would come to Las Vegas, and he told me, you got to move to LA, man. Okay. And then Alex went to Las Vegas. I met Luis Conte. He lived in LA.
Wow.
Then there comes a call. After years of knowing Carlos Vega, there was a band called Caldera that Carlos used to play in. And I have 2 CDs. And it was Steve Tabaglione, Eddie Del Barrio, and a lot of great musicians. And then I got a call, and it was the leader from the band. He goes, man, Carlos, I think he went on a tour and cannot do, but he told me to call you and he recommended you. So I went, oh my God, I love that band, Caldera. And the guy goes, well, when are you going to be back in town? I goes, what do you mean back in town? I live in Las Vegas. And he goes, oh no, man, we got to have all the musicians in LA because we don't have a big budget or anything like that. I cannot be depending. So I rented my little townhouse, and the first gig that came, which was Ben Vereen on the road, I said, Ben, do you mind if I come out of LA instead of Las Vegas? He goes, no. He goes, okay. So I moved to Las Vegas in 1980.
See, that's taking initiative. You got to do that. When you get the call, you don't hesitate. You just say, yes, I'll make it happen.
Yeah, I always say, somebody told me this, and it kind of like stayed in my mind for many years. He goes, if you make really great sweaters, don't move to the Sahara Desert. It'll never be used, and there'll never be a winner. So, really, the first thing, the art is one thing. Okay, I make the best sweaters in the world, but where do they need the sweaters that you make? Right. So I said, okay, so what I want to do is record and play with other people. I had like Las Vegas. I was working in Las Vegas, but it was like a cap. Where do I go from here? Mm-hmm. And so I started calling everybody I knew, and I have to mention names.
I love it.
Because they helped me. And so I
absolutely shout everybody out. Yeah, please.
Yeah, while I was paying my rent, I got an apartment in Sherman Oaks. And while I was paying my rent for an apartment, with going out with Ben Vereen, and then I started doing Marilyn McCoo, which didn't travel too much, which was great. I started playing in clubs and with Claire Fisher. Every time Carlos Vega couldn't do a rehearsal or a gig that he couldn't do, or every time Alex Acuna or Luis Conte say, hey man, call Wally. So, and then I started meeting people because if you don't have a day job, I always say to musicians, what do you want to do? Get a day job or get a job during the day in the music business. So try to do something in the music business. So I was working on the road with Ben Vereen and Marilyn McCoo. And even though I was listening to Weather Report and all the hip stuff, it doesn't matter. I mean, that was a discipline musically that I was getting paid to play music for artists while I was reaching my goal, which, by the way, 1980 to 1984, I paid dues it was tough.
Really?
In LA.
Wow.
Rehearsals, club gigs, this and that. It was like, that's what I call paying dues. A lot of musicians I know don't wait that long. They came in 1980 and didn't wait around.
Yeah.
They moved out. And I went, oh no, you got to really
talk about that. You got to give it the long haul. You have to have patience and perseverance.
Well, the long haul is until you do it.
That's right.
And a lifetime.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, until it happens. So basically, there's two things. You go for one goal, but sometimes God gives you other things to the left and to the right, and you cannot just be, oh, no, I'm going this way, I'm going this way. You know what? You have to really sometimes go like, wow, this is a gift over here, and let me see what this has to happen. And I played Persian gigs, I play Latin gigs, I play salsa gigs, I play top 40 gigs, I play weddings, I played the opening of Robinson, playing percussion with a flute player. I played everything that had the word music. I was in it. Church, symphonic, chamber orchestra, jazz clubs, everything. Until 1984, I got the gig to go with Tania Maria, a Brazilian pianist, and John Pena and Ron Powell. And then we went all over the world. So opening for Spyro Gyro and David Sanborn, Japan, all of Europe for 3 months, then United States. And then I met a gentleman in the New Orleans Jazz Festival while I was with Tania Maria. His name is Jorge Calderon. He goes, hey, Wally, I mean, man, you play like all the styles. You play Latin and funk and reggae and all that. You want to audition for this artist, David Lindley? And I said, David Lindley, isn't he the slide guitar player with Jackson Browne on all those hits? And he goes, yeah. We have a band called El Rayo X. So I play with Lindley and Jorge Calderon on this little club. There was like a little cave in Sunset Strip. I forgot the name of it, during the day. And it was just like blues and reggae and Bob Marley and all this. And then we started playing, and I didn't realize, man, David, it was so respected that on the first gig at the, what was this place in Solana Beach, we played a club over there. Then on the first gig, Joe Walsh, Bunny Raitt, and Jackson Browne were there.
Oh my God.
And that was the beginning, 1985, of meeting a lot of the people that were not just jazz, but the rock world.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And because of David Lindley, then we started playing. And one of the fans of David Lindley was Jerry Garcia. So Jerry when it was their turn, the Grateful Dead, everybody takes a turn on opening bands. So when it was Jerry's turn, he wanted Lindley to open. So we did a humongous concert, 90,000 people opening for Los Lobos and the Grateful Dead. And the second time was in 1998, opening for Santana and the Grateful Dead. And you see, I'm just playing with David Lindley, timbales on the side and all that. And Carlos was on my left side. And then that's when he basically contacted me to play with the band. One thing leads to
another. I love that. I was just going to say that. And it's so funny. Oftentimes you think about how these things connect in your life and the trajectory of your career throughout that trajectory. You couldn't orchestrate it if you tried.
No.
You know, it's only, you have to just put your faith out there and then start doing, and it just happens, right?
Man, you said it correctly. Faith. I was just reading about that. You know, I'm not necessarily a religious guy, but I'm very spiritual every day. Because spirituality, I follow one spiritual rule that is actually, I found out that is in almost all the Talmud and the Muslim and Christians and Buddhists. Do unto others what you would like done unto you. So basically, I get up in the morning and starting with my wife and make her coffee. Wouldn't you like somebody to make you coffee? He goes, yeah, I would love that, but so I'm making coffee for her. So basically, I take that to the drum set and to the percussion.
Yeah.
If there's a singer that's just about to come into the microphone and sing the lyrics, how about like, okay, what do you have to say? Quiet down and let her express herself. Oh, there's a guitar solo. Okay, well, quiet down and make that guy feel good so he can express himself. Don't interrupt. And don't be obnoxious, and don't be like, hey, but listen to this snare drum. Listen to my beats. Hey, listen. No. It's not about you. So basically, that's the whole thing that I found out from Ben Vereen to Lola Falana to Santana to Chicago now is it's not about you. It's about them. That's the key right there.
You could say that 30 million times over, and it still wouldn't be enough. Like, I feel that premise, that philosophy, that concept is missing from so many of the professional musicians out there. It really needs to be a philosophy that we all ascribe to, because a conversation, like you just said, is just that. It's a two-way street. And the more people you add to that conversation, the more streets. So now if you have 3 and 4 and 5, and if you have a 12-piece band, imagine if everybody just did whatever the hell they wanted to at it wouldn't work.
Exactly.
So I mean, I love what you're saying. I mean, gosh, it really is the crux of what playing together as musicians is for me.
Yeah, you said at the beginning of the interview, I speak Spanish, I speak English, and I speak music. We speak music.
That's right.
I play with guys that don't speak English. I mean, I play with this guy from Algeria, Khaled. He plays Rai music, R-A-I, which is it means my opinion music. Is really an incredible artist, Khaled, Shep Khaled. And so the percussionists and his musicians, they spoke Moroccan and French, and I spoke English and Spanish. So, man, this percussionist on my right side was masterful, and he was digging on me, and I was digging on him. So he will go, Wally, is you and he pointed to me, ah, okay. So in the hi-hat, yeah. So basically, there was no language spoken other than rhythmical and music. Wow. So I realized long time ago, when you speak, we speak music. And when you're teaching somebody, you're teaching them the ABCs, the rudiments, and then to express themselves. But there's got to be manners. It's got to be dynamics. It's got to be You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. Here's the deal. I have to tell everybody this. So 10 years ago, we'll say, we both were living in Santa Clarita, right?
Yes.
And I think that's how we met somehow. We met, I don't remember exactly.
Well, we did some gigs with Hakon Graf.
Hakon, that's right.
And we played a couple of festivals, the wine festival.
Yeah.
We put some music together. And then I think you had your CD at that time, which I still love that song. Right. I mean, that song is like,
oh man.
It's so, and then of course you got busy with Babyface and other gigs. And I think you moved to Nashville. And by the way, I'm talking to you right now from Northern Kentucky. I live here now.
Wow. Beautiful. Okay. I want to get to that. And it's funny. At that time, I was with Face. You were with Lindsey Buckingham, I believe.
Yeah.
Looking at your resume here. But I have to say this. So for those listeners who don't realize, Wally has this beautiful resume. He's played, Santana, Boz Scaggs, Gloria Estefan, Steve Winwood, Joe Sample, Lindsey Buckingham. And then I say to him, Jackson Browne, I call him up and I say, hey, Wally, I have this little gig at a coffee shop. It's a Western store that also has a little coffee shop in the corner, right? And you go into the store and it's all about for horses, it's all equestrian type stuff. And I said, bro, I don't think I could pay you much, a little something. He goes, and you were like, bro, whatever, just tell me when and I'll be there. You showed up, you brought the rig, and you backed me up on percussion because I was singing and playing guitar, but you backed me up and you made me feel so good. You made me feel like I was Lindsey Buckingham or Santana or, Jackson Browne. Like you treated me, and I was just a nobody, a guitar player buddy that we met on a gig. You treated me just as well as you treat all of these celebrity artists that you've been playing with for years. So that, they're talking about manners, but also humility. I mean, come on.
Well, Michael, I'll tell you, like you said something there that I tell my kids, because, my daughter is singing with George Benson now.
I noticed that. Congrats.
Yeah, she plays percussion. Of course, nobody's working now, but...
and tell me her name again.
Liliana de los Reyes. So I told Lily, and I got this long time ago from Louis Belson, the drummer.
Yeah.
So he says, you will play your ass off and you will do your best in front of 5, 50, 500, 5,000, and 500,000 people. The same. I mean, I'm not going to play any more for 500,000. And I got to play for 500,000 with Johnny Hallyday, an artist in front of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. So basically, I was playing my ass off then as I was playing with you or as I was playing the baked potato for 15 people.
Yeah.
It's really the music doesn't deserve any less because there's I remember now because I forgot about that gig. And it was really a beautiful communication between you and I on percussion. We were just speaking the language of music and people were digging it.
Yeah.
And
there might have been like 5. There might have been like 5, 6, 7 people in the audience. That was it. No big. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. But they were digging it, and they were like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And we might have turned on somebody to some of the songs that we were doing.
Right.
And it's beautiful to actually. You mentioned Lindsey Buckingham, so I noticed that I mean I can say this now, but every artist has the right to do their art their own way. And so obviously that will make them different. So there's no formula. So Santana, Chicago, Lindsey Buckingham, Steve Winwood, you do names, but they're all different. And they all had asked me different things. Some of them were really strict with the tempo. So I had to count the tempo 120 every night. It could not be 121. Oh no. I mean, Lindsey would notice and Steve Winwood would notice. Had to be like that same tempo, and Santana was totally the opposite. He did not want the same thing every night. He wanted basically to actually do it more shuffly tonight, or let's do it slower tonight. So, you are like a restaurant, like a music restaurant that actually people are asking you dishes and you actually It's all about the customer. And that's what creates the difference between an amateur and a professional, because somebody asked me, an amateur doesn't really play that well. It goes, man, let me tell you something. I know a couple of amateur drummers that play circles around me. They play the drum set unbelievable, but they have not made a personal choice to be of service to a client. So they can play their butt off, but now are you willing to give this artist, like when the client comes, yeah, I want 2 eggs over easy with no salt. Go, oh yeah, but I got this and I got that and I got, no, I don't want no ketchup, no nothing. I just want 2 eggs over easy. So basically that's what the client wants. And that's what you, and so basically that's the difference I found out between a professional, and I've seen them, like I watch Observed, and as much as I love Steve Gadd, the first time I met him, the biggest lesson I got from him, it was a studio, Bill Schnee in North Hollywood. I was in that studio when Bill Schnee had Abraham Laboriel written our album called Captain Fingers, I think. There was Steve Gadd, Alex Acuna, and Don Grusin. And Steve Gadd was sitting on his drum stool for about an hour, didn't touch the drums. He was listening. And they were talking about music and chords. What about this? Hi, I'm Walfredo Reyes Jr., and I played with Santana, Steve Winwood, Chicago, and I am a career musician.
Blasting the stereotype of musicians. Follow us at the Career Musician Podcast.
Want to learn more about a particular topic? Tag @TheCareerMusician and use #CareerMusician to let us know what you'd like to hear.
I love this. So you're in the studio with him, Abe Laboriel, Dave Grusin, Steve Gadd,
and Alex Acuna, and I was just observing. I was like in LA. I was going, "Oh my God, look at these guys!" One day, and and then I never graduated from UNLV because I went and started working. But man, when I was in that session and I saw Steve Gadd, I met him for the first time there, and then later on went to all his clinics through the '80s, and then. That's what I call my music degree. It looks different than all the other music degrees. So I was in 1993 with Santana in Montreux Jazz Festival. Steve Gadd in his chambers in the audience, Peter Erskine on the left, and I did this drum solo. We did the show, was on fire, and I, like always, I thought, man, I thought that, I don't know, I always criticized myself. I went back to my room at 2 a.m. and the lady goes, Monsieur, and he goes, yes. And go, you have a message? And he goes like, oh. Then I open up and it's this letter, and I open up the letter and it's this piece of paper and says, Wally, you were on fire tonight. Great show, great energy, Steve Gadd. And I went, okay, I'm framing this.
That's right. And you still have it, I'm sure?
Oh yeah, I have it somewhere in my notes. Awesome. And then through the years, of course, we become friends.
Yes.
And so, but you see, that's like, well, we were talking about it before. Back then, I was just like a young guy in LA, just kind of like in the studio, just watching.
Yeah.
Which
I think, unfortunately, that's a lost art in and of itself. I used to do the same thing. I would ask the people that I looked up to, "Hey, do you mind if I can come into the session or come to the gig and just kind of watch and and learn?" And that needs to still happen. That kind of apprenticeship, that's very important because you learn so much.
Yes.
Again, in today's culture, I feel like everybody just wants to do it immediately. They don't want to put in the time. They want, the instant results, but that's not how it works, man. Now, you were telling me Steve Gadd is sitting there on the drum set, not saying a word for an hour.
Oh yeah. He was just there, just like listening. Right. So I've learned through the years that everything that we talk about, your craft, drums, for example, drums, okay, technique, 4-way coordination, different drum sets, different equipment, different sizes, tuning, all of that, reading music, interpreting songs, that's 50%. The other 50% is listening. So basically the art of listening and action reaction and listening when to even not to play. Because if you listen and you're so into listening, you go, man, I think if I don't play here, it might sound better. So sometimes you just got to do that, because that's when you are in service of the music and not your ego. So that's the thing. So that's one of the things that I've learned. And I tell students, you can be in your car, and sometimes I've been in a car where there's drummers, and somebody goes, man, you think that's a 22-inch bass drum or 20? You go, what? and after we talk about drums and the sound and the rhythm that they're playing, I go, but what are they singing about? It goes, oh, I don't know. Well, you don't even listen to the words of the song.
That's awesome. Musicians, we're such nerds,
Yeah, so sometimes there's got to be a point where you stop being about behind the cymbals and you go beyond the cymbals. And that's the moment that when I sit on the drums now, and I'm actually, it's not a criticism, it's just basically I'm telling you by trial and error. I wasn't always like that. I've learned. But it was about, now I sit on the drums, and even though I have this real estate in front of me, it's all about after the cymbals. Like to the left, I have a bass player. Over there, I have a horn section. I have a lead singer over here that is singing words,
right,
that mean as much as the music, words and lyrics and music. And I have the keyboard player over here, and it's all about them,
That's
and
right.
the music we're creating together. And drums is just a vehicle to make music. I don't use the music as a vehicle to create drumming. I mean, drums are the vehicle that takes me to the music. So that's one of the things that I've learned that has helped me. And because I say, like, why me, man? Like, so I'm working with Chicago since 2012. Before that, Lindsey Buckingham. And people ask me all the time, and I admire so many drummers. I think that I'm not like the greatest drummer ever, but people tells me, man, I want to do what you're doing. It goes, well, I want to do what you're doing, man. You're like an amazing drummer. But I think that that's the key if you want to be a professional musician. And it's basically about getting into the artist's music.
Yes.
Like if I was going to record for you and you bring some music, well, I ask you.
I'm sitting here looking at your drum set all mic'd up behind you, and I'm like, Wally and I, it's time we work on something, man. We got to do something. So you're all set up to record?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a cool kit, by the way.
I tell you, I'm a late bloomer. I've just, the last 2 months I've been.
That's right.
My head is on Logic.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really have the time to actually do that, and I should have done it. But now that I'm here, I've had microphones, and I just have to buy the rest of the stuff. And I got a few gigs already recording. So
see, there you go.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to tell you, have you ever written a book? Have you thought about writing just a book? Not a lesson?
I started, and the first chapter was back in Cuba during the revolution when I was 5 and all that. It was so tough. I mean, I had to go back and really put my heart and soul in it, and all the memories. So I wrote this first chapter, and I said, like, holy cow. It's actually a good therapy. I didn't really, I started writing a book almost like a book writer that won a prize. He's a children's writer, children book writer. He told me, man, you should write a book and just tell your story. Yes. It's not about if you're famous or whatever, it's just tell your story. So I started telling my story as I can remember in Cuba before I even left Cuba. It was tough, man. The revolution, all the gunfighting out there. Fidel Castro was coming in. Then my mom died. My mom died when I was 5.
Oh,
and
sorry.
That same year, it all happened in 1 year. Going underneath the bed with my toys, my grandma, because there was stray bullets. People fighting Batista, and all of a sudden, then the Fidel Castro came in, and we went from khaki shorts and blue shirts to fatigues and military uniform in kindergarten. And my dad came in and went, "What? No. You know what? I got a gig in New York.
Get out of here."
And then he met my stepmom, which raised me, Matilda.
Wow.
And then so we left Cuba. We didn't know if we were going to come back, but it got worse. And when Cuba closed up, Puerto Rico kind of opened up for the tourists, and all the musicians went to Puerto Rico. So, but I plan to write a book maybe one day. I don't know.
Okay, well, you just said the title of the book. This came from you, and I just happened to write it down. Beyond the Symbols.
Beyond the Symbols.
That's the title of your book, bro. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Life beyond the symbols, you know?
Yeah. It's basically, it's true. It's like live from the drum chair beyond the symbols. It's basically how I observed. And, there was it's very simple. I mean, my life right now, I'm actually writing a chapter as I'm living it, my new life. My kids are grown.
Right.
Well, the story is I met a woman. I moved. I to continue the story. So Santana in the 1989. I got married. Had 3 beautiful children through the 90s. I hooked up with Steve Winwood, Traffic. Played with Steve Winwood for 10 years. And a lot of other artists. 1999, we went through a divorce. 2000, I went to play with Johnny Hallyday in France. I came back, and then came the Millennium era. I started working with Steve Winwood back until 2004. And by 2005, a lot of different clinics and all that, and Lindsey Buckingham from 2007 to 11. Working with Chicago since 2012, but I was in LA, and I basically said, man, I went back to Vegas and bought a house in Las Vegas. It was close to LA, but since I was on the road all the time, I bought a house in Las Vegas and opened up my LLC. And then at the same time that I was buying a house in Las Vegas, I met a beautiful woman, and she's from Cincinnati, Kirsten. So we had a long distance relationship. She could come to Las Vegas, I would come to Cincinnati, and she lived in Cincinnati downtown. And I actually didn't realize that Cincinnati is basically split on the south by the river, the Ohio River, and then you cross over walking and you're in Kentucky.
Wow.
And so Cincinnati, that's the land of Bootsy Collins and a lot of jazz and King Records. And so I actually really love Cincinnati. And I went, well, since I only need an airport nearby, I rented my house in Las Vegas and moved to Cincinnati 2 years ago. And a year ago, we bought this house, which is from 1886, across Cincinnati and the border of the river, northern Kentucky, Newport. And, I got the studio up here. There's 3 floors. They have a basement for all my gear, 2-car garage. And it's like 4-season northern Kentucky, Cincinnati.
I love that, man. That's so cool. All right, so wow. So first of all, thank you for taking us through the resume timeline. There's so many, big names. 2 things I want to talk about. Number one, you have so many big celebrity artist names on your resume. However, a good portion of them are for very long terms. Something I want to talk about. I was the music director for Babyface for 10 years, and I was his guitar player for another 2. So I was with him for 12 years. And most of your gigs are between 5 and 10 and or more years. Something that, once again, a lot of people don't understand how to keep a gig. Okay, you nailed the audition, you got the gig, but how do you keep the gig? And how do you cultivate the gig for long term? Let's talk about that first.
Yeah, that's a very important point. Well, there's many different factors. I would have probably stayed with Steve Winwood longer, but I was going through a massive divorce with the mother of my children.
Yeah.
And so I could not be, so I wanted to raise my kids as much as I could. And that's why I moved to Santa Clarita, because I was driving 4.5 hours back and forth to the Bay Area to pick up my youngest son. And the judge basically told me, so Mr. Reyes, what do you want? He goes, well, I want to raise my kids, but they deserve to have a mom, but they deserve to have a dad. And he goes, well, what do you want? Second and fourth weekends or first and third? I said, I'll be here second and fourth weekends. Well, how can you be on tour with Steve Winwood in Europe and the jazz festivals and traveling all over the place? And he made London like the central hub, you know?
Yeah.
So I was flying from LA, driving to San Francisco, flying back to LA, trying to meet the gig over here. And basically, I was actually about to have a nervous breakdown. It was affecting the music. It was affecting me. Even though people don't realize when they see that soundstage concert with Steve Winwood that was recorded 2004, I was not on a diet there. That was like a stress diet, nerve diet.
Wow.
You know, I had to like fly at 3 a.m. to try to make the 6 o'clock flight so I can be visiting my son at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Redwood City, California. I mean, I did things that were inhuman until finally it gave. So that's the only reason that stopped. Sometimes, for example, there's some artists like Chicago. Chicago is just like these guys, man. There is a machinery that is so greased to perfection because they have been through so many divorces like that one that I went through.
That's right.
So they don't do more than 4 weeks on the road, or there's 3 weeks on the road, 4 weeks max, because the family's hurt, the kids hurt.
That's right.
So basically they come home even if it costs more. So we do some gigs, but we do 8 months out of the year in and out.
Oh, wow.
And so
That's incredible.
From 2012 has been basically it's just Chicago. So in between, I can do some things, recording, my jamming at the Baked Potato with my little band. That's my second CD. I did that in between Chicago.
And what was the band called?
It was Wally World, but that was my jamming at the Baked Potato.
Right. Gotcha.
And it's just covers. It's just for fun, do all kinds of different things. So I did that and then fly out the next morning for another little leg. And the relationship with Chicago is just so great. These guys never really tell me too much. It's just they're not ball busters or whatever. Some artists are more specific. They want to continuously experiment. Chicago, we don't sound check and we don't rehearse. They don't want to rehearse or sound check. Learn the music. I'll see you in the downbeat. And you should be. Yeah.
Okay. I love that. Wow. Okay. I've been waiting purposely. I didn't want to mention Chicago until towards the end because this is the crux of this is the climax of what we're talking about. You had such an affinity for them, CTA, Chicago Transit Authority, when you were a young kid. And then all of a sudden your dream became realized. So now you're playing with your dream band. So let's talk about it. And the fact that you just said they don't do sound checks, that is so amazing. I am the same way. I'm like, you know what? If you're playing music that you really know and that it definitely has a sound and you're sticking to that authentic sound, you don't need a sound check.
Right. And the sound changes. So the first time I said, wow, we don't sound check. And I asked, like, I think it was Jimmy, he goes, man, it's unbelievable. Like, you guys don't sound check. He goes, yeah, it messes up with my nap time.
Yeah, that's right. I love that. But at the same time, now you guys have an amazing crew, staff, and tech. So I'm sure they go through everything. They basically do the sound check for you. They play all your instruments. They check all the lines, all the ear monitors. They do everything.
Right. And so when we arrive, is basically right to work. Meet and greet, grab a bite. And then my tech, if he changes drum heads, I'm like a hands-on drummer.
Yeah.
I don't care how much of a star the artist is. I love to tune my drum. So if he changes the heads, I have to go over there on the stage before the people go on. Yeah. And I make sure that the drums are tuned. But he does such a great job. Most of the time, it lasts less than a minute. And then, John, I love you. You're great. Bam. And then I go to catering. And basically, we do the show, and then that's when we travel at night. We get on the bus and travel after the show, and then we arrive at the next hotel, sleep until when we leave at 5:30, 6. Yeah. And basically, that's our life. And the greatest places, when we hit like a really great place, we stay in nice hotels because these guys could save more money and spend and but they would not be on the road.
Right.
And that's Lindsay's point too. At that age, why are we even going to be on the road? Or we have to suffer in any way. Yeah. I mean, no, we spend a little more, but we staying in a hotel that on the day off, you can bring your wife or the kids can come and join you. Whatever. And so that's like, I'm really, really blessed. Yes. And that's something that, by the way, Chicago's not the only one. Santana was like that. Yeah. We will come home after a month from the tour in Europe, and the management will be going, "What? No, these guys they're in Europe. Let them do three months in Europe." No, Debbie Santana would say, "No, the kids need to see their parents." I love that. Even though that's really difficult, because the other day I did an interview, somebody asked me, it was really emotional because it was a kid that I taught in MI, and he told me that back then I was really having emotional problems being on the road with Santana. So I did a teaching at MI, and apparently I don't remember, but he remembers. He goes, I learned from Wally not only about drums, but about his kids and the family and balance of family and music. And now I'm a father, and 25 or 30 years later, that lesson is alive in my life. So I went like, wow, man. Wow, yeah. So whatever it was, I must have said something. Yeah, that's so true. This is the thing, Michael. It's really difficult to be the best at something when you're only allowed to be part-time, because there's no way I can be the father I want to. I wouldn't do anything else. And there's no way I can be the best drummer I want to, because I would not have a wife. I could not be a father. I could not be a brother, a son. So you are a part-time, the best part-timer ever. So when I play drums, I try to do the best. But then, like after I finish this interview, I got a dinner date with my wife. I could play drums all night. But, you got to balance out life. That's right. And then sometimes I have to go and visit my kids. And sometimes it's about my dad. He's 87. And sometimes it's about friends. And sometimes, so basically, my congas are calling me, hey, man, when are you going to practice me? The electronic stuff. Hey, when are you going to learn this new software that arrived from Logic Audio? Goes, man. So you know what I'm saying? You're part-time. Even the dog barked at me. It's like, who are you? It goes, I adopted you from the shelter. It goes, roar, roar. I don't know you. You've been gone. So,
balance, bro. Balance. That's right. We need that.
Balance.
So before we go, tell us about that process getting into Chicago. Like I said, your dreams were realized, because one of the things I like to ask all my guests is your dream collaboration, and obviously it seems like yours happened many times over.
Yeah, I didn't on purpose. Okay. When I was like in the 8th grade mowing lawns in Puerto Rico, I didn't even know that I was going to move to the United States. Right. And I was already loving the music that I heard on the radio. So I mowed lawns. They gave me $10 to work my ass off mowing lawns and doing gardening for neighbors. And I got paid $10, and I went to Jamco and I bought CTA with my own money. So I remember opening up that album and looking at the album and going, wow, man, that would be great to do these tunes in front of people. And then my second album was Cream, Disraeli Gears, and my third one was Abraxas. Wow. And so, meaning that I loved this band. So I never got to play with Eric Clapton, but I got to play with Santana. I got to play with Traffic and Jim Capaldi, with Jackson Brown. I would love to play with Peter Gabriel, because he got percussionists and the African percussion, and all the drummers of Peter Gabriel I'm a fan of. Jerry Murata, Manu Katché, all the drummers that have played with him. So Phil Collins sound. I was always a fan of Peter Gabriel. So, some dreams come true, and if one time that happens, fine. But the biggest dream is that I was able and I'm still able to make a living playing music, which is what I love.
Yeah.
That's the biggest blessing and the biggest dream come true.
That's true.
With Chicago, it was like by accident. Lindsey Buckingham tour got canceled, and my brother went to play percussion with Chicago when the percussionist left. So it's like this. It's one of those chance kind of thing. So I was freelancing in LA, like playing with El Chicano, playing over here, playing over there. And Danny had just gotten the job with Zac Brown Band, but he started playing percussion with Chicago. And he says, man, I cannot do a week engagement. Can you come and do a week of shows for me? And he goes, yeah, of Chicago. Are you kidding me? I knew like what Luigi de Oliveira played with Chicago and percussion and all that. So it was as a percussionist. I came in, I learned the show and started playing. And on the third night, Robert Lamb came to the dressing room, and I thought, here we go. He's going to tell me something like, don't do this, don't do that, don't play here, don't play there.
Right.
So I came in and went, hey, Wally, I know your brother's busy with Zac Brown and everything, but man, you sound like you've been with us forever. And I said, well, I have, since your first CD, since your first record. And he goes, well, if you want to hop in the bus and go on tour with us, you're more than welcome. And I guess that was the hiring.
Wow.
So I called my brother. I says, man, I just got hired.
I just stole your gig, bro.
Yeah, I just stole your gig. But, Danny had Zac Brown Band. So,
Yeah.
So then in 2018, Tristan Bowden had been with the band for many, many years. And we had a great bass player, singer too. But some stuff happened that had to do with wives and family and many times on the road. And everybody's dynamics is different.
That's right.
My kids are all grown. And I went through that hard balance when I was with Santana and Steve Winwood. So there's some guys in the band that are going through that right now. And I went into the drumming position in 2018. I got hired. Lee, the trumpet player, finally finalized everything. He shook my hand and says, welcome, you're the new drummer, third drummer that ever played with Chicago. I go, man, it's an honor. He goes, there's only one thing I ask of you. He goes, what is it? He goes, I never want to worry where one is after one of your drum fills, okay?
Yeah,
so
right.
So I said, that will never happen.
There you go. Always set up the downbeat, man.
That's right. So it goes to show you, so I said, like, okay, if that's the only request you have, that's you easy. Got it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll make it so comfortable that you're going to just like fall on the one, like if you're falling on your bed and your pillow.
On your pillow. I love it. I can't stand that when the drummers get so complicated and you have to think like, oh, shoot, wait, where is it here? That, to me, that's just irresponsible drumming.
Yeah, I agree. It's about the ego.
Yeah.
So like Steve Ferroni, which I love dearly.
Oh yes, I have a good story too. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they say, so Steve, I noticed with Tom Petty and this tune, you don't even hit the cymbal, you don't even do a fill. And he goes, well, what I do is when I have the urge to do a drum fill, don't.
It's so funny. I love that. So first of all, earlier you were talking about Steve Gadd and how you were in the studio and he just sat there quietly for over an hour, just listening and taking notes, taking it all in. I had the pleasure of hiring Steve Ferroni for a session, a record I was producing, maybe 2-3 years ago. So I met Steve doing some gigs with David Foster, and Steve is just a sweetheart, right? So I said, okay, Steve, here's the gig, blah blah blah, and I was trying out a new studio. Now, this is a lesson to me. When you're producing a record, never try out a new studio, on the first day. You know what I mean? Like, if you're producing a record, you have to know which studio you're going to. You have to have a rapport there. You have to be really comfortable. Anyway, I didn't. And nonetheless, the studio owner didn't have everything set up and everything wasn't right. So I kid you not, Wally, it took 6 hours to get the studio reconfigured, to have the drums set up, and to get sounds. So, I put the downbeat at a nice, comfortable time. I said, everybody show up at 11 a.m. So, downbeat, we'll try to downbeat at 11 noon, keep it comfy. Of course, Steve gets there around 10:30. We walk in, hanging out. I said, yeah, we're going to be ready in about probably another 30 minutes or so. I go in. I'm trying to get everything set up with the house engineer. It's a mess. Anyway, long story short, 6 hours later, we finally get set up. You know what Steve Ferroni did? This is how professional he is. He sat on the couch in the lounge and did not complain once, didn't make a peep, didn't bitch and moan. He just said, you know what? I'm here. When you need me, you tell me. I'm here for you. Don't worry.
Well, that's a professional.
Okay, you know what I mean? Like, how amazing is that? And I'm now, of course, I'm sweating bullets. I feel like a dumbass, So I'm apologizing profusely to him. And he's like, man, don't worry about it. It's okay. When you're ready, let's cut it, And then
Michael, he was compassionate.
Compassionate. When we got in there, we cut the whole album in 3 hours. The whole fucking album in 3 hours.
Yeah, because he had compassion, consideration, because it could happen to that's why I actually, if there's drummers out there listening, it's really, really great, again, to step out of your drum chair and write a song, produce something, get in the engineer position, or even play percussion. Because from the percussion chair, I can tell you, I've learned so many things of what to do and what not to do as a drummer.
That's right.
And so basically, because it's a different point of view, and that's what compassion, if you look compassion in the dictionary, is put yourself in the position of others so you can feel what they're going through.
That's beautiful.
So I think we need that in the world so much.
Yep.
Starting on stage.
Starting on stage.
Yes. Starting on stage.
Man, so true, so true. I love everything you said, man. I'm a huge fan of you as a musician, but I'm a huge fan of you even more so as a person. I love you, Wally. You're amazing.
Well, man, it's an honor. Me too. I'm a fan of you, and I love your career musician. You told me,
thank you.
That one time I actually was putting a hashtag, which is tour life, which I feel like that's been like my hashtag.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be 65 this year. I'm 64 and I started professional. I recently received my musicians union when my dad signed for me, because I was a minor when I was 16 years old. 16. Amazing. Musicians union in Las Vegas. So from 16 to 64, I've been nonstop working as a musician. I don't know even how to hammer a nail. I don't know how to fix a toilet. I mean, I just don't know how to change the oil in my car. Yeah. I don't know how to do anything. I know how to do drums, percussion, music. Now I'm learning electronics more. Hey, but that's all I've done.
Yeah, but you know how to love your family, and that's amazing. So you've accomplished two amazing things in your life: music and family, and that's all that matters.
And it's difficult, like we talked about. The balance is challenging. So, you cannot have, they say, when you say to somebody, follow your dreams will come through. But wait a second. Be careful what you ask, because don't follow dreams that are unrealistic. You cannot be a soccer dad and be there every day watching cartoons with your kids and then doing things around the house and being on a world tour. That's unrealistic.
So true.
You cannot do that. Or you cannot go training your dog and jog with your dog every day, for a few hours when you're in Europe or in Moscow, and then from Moscow you got to go to Africa, and then I mean, is that life? And a lot of record companies send bands because they'll make money from their office, while the band is just basically, more bands have broken up because of that. Incredible, inhuman tours, and you got to take uppers and downers and try to drink so you can go down to sleep, because we got to. So that is so inhuman, and that's why a lot of bands break up.
Absolutely right.
Humans, So you've been through it. You know how it is.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We hung out in Jakarta. In
Jakarta, that's right. We hung out. Oh man. Well, as of October last year, I'm no longer with Babyface. Just before the pandemic, so that that kind of worked out. Good timing. But I'm a free agent, and I've been really focusing on my music with my wife, Nomad Nola, which, like I said, I'll send you the music. And I've been focusing on this podcast because I feel like, again, like you said, I feel so great. I'm so grateful to have all these amazing friends in the music business who are such great talents and who have achieved so much that I really wanted to interview my friends such as yourself and get this information out there, because there's so many aspiring professional musicians that need to hear this. There's so many career musicians already that are doing it for a living that need to hear this, Yeah. So we got to get this message out. I just feel it's so important, and to support one another, because music isn't about competition. It's not like sports. No. It's the Lakers aren't going to beat the Heat. Okay, yeah, that's a game. They have to compete. But in music, Chicago doesn't have to go up against Santana and play a competition. No,
it's not about
crazy.
The only competition I feel that I'm in is against myself, trying to be the best I can be.
Yes.
I am not in competition with others, because that's the thing. I know, I think when you arrive at certain age and certain level in your profession, I know what I can do. I know what I cannot do, but I got to continue to know what I know that I can do. So if I'm out of shape, I know it, and I have to compete against me, but I'm not going to try to be Neil Peart. I cannot play like Neil Peart. I cannot play like Buddy Rich. I cannot play like Vinny. I can play like Wally. Wally Reyes.
So perfect. A couple of people who know me well said, "Man, why don't you do an Eddie Van Halen tribute? Since he passed, and Eddie is the reason why I started playing guitar. I idolized the guy ever since I'm a kid." And I said, "You know what? I can't. And it's not that I physically can't. I could learn some of his stuff, but it's not going to sound like Eddie. It's going to sound so much like me that it's not really going to be. It's just not Eddie. It's me, and I don't have the desire to do it. Yeah. I don't want to copy somebody for the sake of copying them. I honor him so much and what he did on the guitar that I don't touch it. And in my mind, that's honoring him. You know what I mean?
That's very good. The same thing is really weird, because I'm in a band like I was with Santana and Steve Winwood. I'm in that position with a lot of bands, actually, even with Lindsey Buckingham. But Danny Serafin, I idolized, and I love Danny. And then Tristan Bowden used to be with Kenny Loggins. This Is It, Footloose, all that. And then he was with Chicago when I was playing percussion. Now, I love those two guys. So, when I actually sit on the position with Chicago, I got to honor the songs. So basically those classic fills that Danny did, I do them because they're like hooks. But then the guys in the band, they've been doing those songs for 50-something years. Then Robert Lamb especially comes to me and says hey, Wally, just do your thing. Yeah. Basically he wants to hear freshness. So I'm the one that actually going, well, I want to do this like Danny Serafin, because it's such a classic, like Beginnings. Doom, ba, those fills that I grew up with. But there's got to be a time when you basically are you are you, and even if you imitate Danny or Tris or Steve Gatt, whatever, it comes like you. It comes out, and all those guys I love and is inspired. Of course, I can imagine what you got from Eddie Van Halen that led to many of your vocabulary.
Right. Absolutely. And because we all borrow from one another, right? The vernacular, it's universal. It all swims around in the ethos, and we just grab it,
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wally, this has been a blast, man.
Well, man, I look at your studio right now, and it's like, my hands are sweating. You got all the guitars, and we'll do something, man. I
have some ideas.
I can do a lot right here, and then I got a great guy in LA that I highly recommend him. I love this guy. He mixed my 2 CDs.
Nice.
His name is John Silas Cranfield, and he's gotten so busy. He's working with Beyonce and working at Conway Studios and with Alicia Keys and
nice.
And I'm going, I'm not going to be able to afford you anymore. But I told him when you're not busy, but man, he takes anything and just ups the level and so quickly. So the other day I had him on the phone and goes, I cannot get this and I cannot that. So he's been helping me a lot. And here in Northern Kentucky, it's really interesting because there's a lot of churches, and a lot of these churches have been bought. And they're not actually churches, they're recording studios.
See?
Yeah.
Look at that.
So there's a few down the street from me. There's Ashley Shepard. Man, is like an incredible engineer, graduated from Berkeley.
Yeah.
And he has video and audio, and it's Audio Grotto. And he has a church, and he's got these rooms in there that are like, wow. So, there's some great studios here that is, there's the real estate, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Very affordable.
Yeah, and I went to one the other day, and it looked like a museum of microphones, like vintage. In fact, Blondie mixed one of her records there. She could have mixed it in New York, but she mixed it there because there's so many ancient microphones. And so if I cannot do it here, I can do it in
one of those. Yeah. Hey, let me ask you some rapid fire questions real quick.
Yes, sir.
Favorite food?
Oh man, I have to say Cuban.
I was hoping you were going to say that because if you didn't, I would have been
nostalgia. It's not just food.
Yeah.
Nostalgia.
Arroz con pollo, empanadas, tostones, picadillo. Oh, see?
Yeah.
All right, favorite libation? Adult beverage?
Adult beverage?
Yeah.
Oh, well, right now I'm into the bourbon.
Bourbon, see?
Yes.
I've been getting into the bourbons.
God. You got to come over one day.
Oh, I can't wait.
To a bourbon trail.
Well, it's so funny. I was already thinking, like, I need an excuse to go visit you so we can go record in one of those studios.
Yes, and have a bourbon trail. It's actually American history, this bourbon. It's
very cool.
But it's, bourbon.
Favorite sport?
Well, I made the drums and percussion my sports, but I used to play football when I was a kid.
Nice. Like soccer, football, or football?
No, American football.
American football.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you spend your free time?
Going for walks and going to places that I've never been with my wife. We just basically now take drives down to Kentucky, like the Bourbon Trail, or go to a little town that, learning a history and just changing the mental channel. So basically, and walks. I love walking.
I love that too. After all these years of being on tour, do you prefer to drive yourself or to be driven?
Well, I wouldn't drive the tour bus, but I like to drive myself.
Yeah.
I like to drive unless I have to go on the tour bus.
Yeah, that's different. What activities do you enjoy on those long flights?
Well, I catch up on music, on movies.
There you go. Anything?
I don't go to the movies theaters too much. So I catch up on all the movies, and then I catch up on music.
There you go. What have you been watching lately? TV show, movies that you've been digging?
Oh, man. So my wife and I have been watching Netflix.
Yeah.
And we actually saw Social Dilemma. That's a crazy documentary. Yes. And we actually, all the Netflix stuff, we watched A Songwriter with Alicia Keys. It's about songwriting.
Isn't that cool? Yeah, I just checked it out. I love it. Yes.
Yes, so I love documentaries. Documentary on Phil Collins' Face Value records. That's a beautiful one. On Peter Gabriel's Soul record. And all the back stories. So I love, you can see that I even made my entertaining related to music,
Right. I love it.
Netflix is, I love Netflix.
It's very, very cool, very convenient. Now, what's the last song you listened to that you had no professional affiliation with?
Oh, man. I got up this morning for some reason, and I had to put, it was in my head, Don't Get Me Wrong. Chrissy Hynde, The Pretenders, Steve Jordan on drums. It just came out of nowhere. So I started really listening to that. and I own the album, but I don't know where it is. And yeah, sometimes just stuff just comes to my mind for no reason at all.
I love that. I love
That's
that.
the last song that I was listening.
That's beautiful. And finally, what would you do if you weren't a career musician?
Man,
No, that's a tough one.
I've always loved art, and it's called, now they call it flipping homes, but I never really saw it as that. I actually love, like this house, we're living in an 1886 home that has history, and so basically, just like I love vintage instruments, homes, making them better, like you and I make songs better,
right?
Vintage instruments better, places that I live better, gardening and make it more beautiful. And I actually if I would have more time, I think I would have made a living doing that, refurbishing old homes into more beautiful. And yeah, I would have done that.
That's awesome. Wally, you have been an awesome interview. Thank you so much, my friend.
Man, thank you so much. And we'll stay in touch and we'll make some music together.
Absolutely.
Help us continue to provide you with new and engaging content by getting our ratings up. Please subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts.
Follow The Career Musician on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date on the latest news and get tips from the world's leading musicians.
I'm just a nomad, nowhere man, writing the songs in this one-man band. A nomad, yeah, I'm a nomad. Hush now, darling, you'll be fine. I'll be back this way.
Hey, this is Nomad, host and creator of the Career Musician Podcast, and I am thoroughly stoked to be an official member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Pantheon Podcast Network is the first of its kind as an all-music-based podcast collective. Please be sure to check us out at pantheonpodcast.com for more info.